Very soon, there are going to be questions asked, hard questions, about the giant overreaction to the current situation. There will be apologists. Boy, if we hadn't done this, and if we hadn't done that, we for sure would have seen blah, 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 blah. Really, for as much information as this channel and others have put out talking about H1N1 back in 2009 and 10, there have been 5 people on social media ready to shoot us down talking about the what-if scenarios. Well, I have something for you today that I don't think even those people are going to be able to deal with. They're not going to be able to shoot this down. We've talked about AIDS, and one of the big pushbacks I got talking about the AIDS pandemic that hit in the 80s was that, well, you can't get AIDS from the air. Well, that's true. We know that now. Nobody knew that then. Nobody in 1983, 84, or 85 could say that was a for sure that you couldn't get it from a toilet seat. And also, remember, you couldn't even go to the library and check out a book about it. There was no internet. There was no 24-hour news. Even the guys that were on the news at night, they didn't know. And that went on for years and years. So if there was ever a chance to overreact, given that it had a 100% fatality rate and was beginning to work its way into the blood supply, and it wasn't initially, it was just thought that it was the gay bathhouses in San Francisco. But then all of a sudden, heterosexual housewives were getting it. Their husbands not realizing that their extracurricular activities were going to be a problem. And nobody knew. And those few people that might have known or had an inclination had no way to get that information out on a global scale. We didn't have the internet then. But what I'm going to show you today is still going on right now around the world. In fact, this pandemic killed, are you ready for this? 1.6 million people last year, and yes, you can get it just by being in the same room with someone who has it. The world's most infectious killer, respiratory disease that lives in the lungs, and you can cough it up in droplets. And if you're in the same room and you breathe those droplets, guess what? You get it. These are the standard precautions that are listed everywhere to prevent this coming disease. I shouldn't say coming disease because that's inaccurate. This disease that's been here forever. Clean your hands. Put on a fit-tested N95 or higher level respirator before room entry with someone who has this disease. Door to room must remain closed. Some of you, I think, are starting to get this. And if you don't think it's something that's in the United States, here are the stats for it. 1993 to 2018, the numbers have been coming down. 25,000 cases in 93. But remember, this disease is near fatal. Tuberculosis is the top infectious killer in the world. 1.6 million people in 2017 died from TB, including 300,000 people with HIV. Oh, and by the way, there's another statistic coming out now that they're going to start to do some separation on. You see, there's a difference between dying with COVID-19 and dying from or of COVID-19. That's what's coming out now. Because there was this strange thing that all of a sudden every other disease and every other malady just decided to take a break during this. Well, what was happening was that people that were already sick and likely to die from other things ended up getting COVID, and so they just rolled them into the COVID numbers. This is a great graph to show you this. This big orange dot, that's tuberculosis. The smaller orange one, smallpox. Malaria, plague, influenza, cholera, AIDS, and COVID is way down here somewhere. They don't have it yet, but it's definitely below AIDS. And those of you that are talking about, though, we have a test for that, we have an immunization, and they will cause all of them to receive a mark that no man might buy, sell, rich and poor, free and bond. If you're my age, you have one of these. Meaning, actually today, I turned 50. They stopped doing this, I believe they said, I've read a couple of places, around 86 or so. But if you were born in the 70s or earlier, somewhere on your body, you have a TB test scar. And many people at that time thought it was the mark of the beast, so to speak. Yet we still got them, because they gave them to children. And it was a requirement to go to school. You couldn't enroll unless you had this on file. So don't think what's going on now is anything new. There are diseases that have come in the past that were far more deadly than COVID-19 is. We just had people in charge of our government in the past that weren't quite so spineless, that weren't quite so knee-jerk, that took their job seriously, that took their duties seriously. I'd like to find somebody, I would like somebody, I guess I should say, to find for me some clause in the Constitution that says that this supersedes the Bill of Rights. That there's some duty that they swore to that supersedes them honoring their oath to keep us protected from unreasonable searches and seizures, protecting our right to peaceably assemble, our right to freedom of speech, freedom of worship. This is the worst aspect of this entire thing, is the group of people that have forgotten that basic history disproves everything you're saying. Tuberculosis, they have dug up mummies thousands of years ago that have evidence of tuberculosis. It's been going around for a long time. And I'll reiterate this thing about AIDS. At that time, the people in charge of the government did not know exactly for sure how it was transmitted or how it could be transmitted. And it was 100% fatal, and it was in the blood supply. Now think about that right now in modern context. You have this plague, and people are coming in, and they are kicking over dead, dying horrible deaths 100% of the time. Right now, COVID-19, 85% of the people are getting over it on their own. AIDS, 100% of the people died horrible deaths, and the numbers were going up and up and up and up, and nothing was stopping it, and nobody knew where it was really coming from or how it was being transmitted. And yet they didn't shut the world down. Nobody missed a day of school. Nobody missed a day of work. And there was, like I said, you couldn't even go check out a book from the library and say, okay, here, this proves how you can or cannot get this disease. No such thing existed. And we aren't talking about a few months' time like we're talking about here from November of last year to April of this year. That was the case for years. 83, 84, 85, 86. About 87 or 88, they started to get a handle on it and were able to get information out that said it was bodily fluids. But years went by and the numbers skyrocketed. And it wasn't just sex workers. It wasn't just people that were promiscuous. It was all over the place. And while certain prophylactics protected you from some of it, it also gave rise to this thing called HPV, the human papillomavirus, which started to a whole nother video on that. But they didn't know at the time. Nobody knew at the time. They thought maybe you could get it from being on a toilet seat that hadn't been sanitized from the previous person. Because, you can get crotch critters that way. Hate to say it, trying to be nice about it, but, crabs are just crabs. I don't mean to be graphic, but they are what they are. Once those things get on a Navy ship, game's over. There's going to be guys all sorts of through the ship that are going to get it that never once cheated on their wives. Because those things just back up and explore. And I will just leave it there. But tuberculosis, far deadlier and just as infectious, yet nobody shut anything down. And in 1 year, in 2017, it killed 1.6 million. 1.6 million people in 1 year. And like I said, share this with your friends. Share this with your COVIDiots, your social distancers, and have them explain why now, but not because of this. Oh, that's right. I forgot. Like, share, subscribe.